From beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida, we welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to the sixth race of the season for the SARG Superspeedway Series. Getting ready for 80 laps of racing here today. These drivers are now at the midway portion of the season, but only 3 races left until we reach the playoffs. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Tyler Riggs. And Tyler, tonight, these drivers are taking to Daytona 2008, which means it's not the repaved Daytona. So pun intended, maybe a bit of a bump in the road for these guys.
Yeah, and a bit of a curveball as well after, of course, Michigan International Speedway last week. That was the first non-plate track, if you will, so to speak, in the series on the season. That gave us some explosive results, and I'm sure tonight, first time for these guys seeing the 2008 version of Daytona on the sim here in the series. So should be interesting, but Seth, a good opportunity for a lot of these guys because this will be the finale race as well in terms of the, the series. So a good chance to take some notes.
Absolutely, as these drivers getting ready to get onto the grid for the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge 200 here this evening, as Alex Fox will start on point, his second pole of the season. And it's so difficult to go coast to coast these super speedways, as the past races have shown. So far, no driver that has started on the pole has been able to close out the race with a win.
Yeah, there's been a couple guys close. Lucas Graham, those first 3 races, he was the pole sitter in each of those first 3 races. He had some moments where he thought he might pull through, but instead it was last week for him getting that first win at Michigan. Today here, he'll start second. So that'd be something to watch for him and see if he kind of keep the momentum going. That's something that's proved to be difficult, I think, Seth, is really just race to race being able to really come through and, have top finishes and being able to consistently put yourself up there for a win.
You mentioned about Lucas Cram getting his first victory of the season last week at Michigan. That was one of 2 top 5s he's had here in the first starts of the year. However, the driver that was leading the points going into Michigan leaves as the points leader, as he has 3 top 5s, and that's Brandon Hoff, but it's only 2-point separation between those 2 drivers.
Yeah, Lucas was very happy last week to pull that gap a bit closer, as you mentioned, where it's now only a 2-point separation there. And then, of course, with all the bonus points up for grabs in this series, between, a bonus point for the pole, you get some bonus points for leading the lap, leading the most laps, and, of course, the stage as well. That's a big thing. We'll have to see how Hoff approaches that and see if, maybe he's trying to be aggressive today to extend that gap, or just see if he's maybe keeping an eye on what Lucas is doing throughout the race.
Points are really split up, too, because we have that 2 points between Hoff and Cram. 16 points back is another former winner this season in Connor Horn. But then it's over 50 points back to a cluster of drivers: Gavin Jones, Nick Olson, Robbie Lyons, and Alex Bell. 4th through 7th, they're all separated by only 6 points.
Yeah, those guys are all guys that have had strong performances, but have had some bad luck as well. So as we are now green here at Daytona in the Grit Racing Challenge 200.
Going to be Nick Olson pushing Alex Fox on the inside line. Jeremy Jones, I believe, on the, make that Connor Horn on the top side, helping the 44 of Lucas Cram.
Yeah, and really, Seth, I'd say Connor Horn maybe has been the kind of the go-to guy in terms of just, knowing when to set the pace, when to push, when to go after it. He's, as you mentioned, a little bit back on the points, and that's mainly because he just had some bad luck. He's been the only multiple-time winner here so far this season, but with a couple of those bad luck finishes, has really kind of pushed him away from what probably should have been a points lead for him coming into today.
That outside line down the back straightaway got the advantage as far as speed, but Alex Fox on the inside challenged back in turn 3. Neither line really getting an advantage at the stripe. I think Cram by a splitter led the first lap of this race.
Yeah, you're right on that. And the interesting difference here, we're talking about the bumpiness, obviously. Anybody who's messed around on iRace a little bit knows that creates a bit of a different way to have to try to get your runs with this bumpy Daytona track. Really got to measure things up, and you got to be somewhat careful because, with those extra bumps in the corner now, you maybe can't push as hard as you usually would on the smooth surface for the rescan Daytona.
Oh, we got a car down in the grass. That's a 48.
You hold on to it. It looks like Quinn Gingrich did. He was last week's pole sitter. What a save there. He's trying to work his way back up on track. Oh, there's Mitchell Muma to the wall, and they're wrecking back there.
At least 4 trucks. Oh, we got a flipper. I think that is Muma, upside down and over end over end.
Oh, my. Tough wreck early on here. That one was kind of as you saw it develop, just a chain reaction. Oh man, that is tough for Muma as well. He's had some good runs. Was needing a decent finish today to be able to try to get himself up there in some points. And boy, Seth, that just illustrates right there. There's not a lot of room when mistakes start to happen, and guys stacked up pretty quick there.
Muma looking for his first top 10 of the season. Doesn't look like it's going to happen here tonight, as not only did he have that flip out of turn 4, but the truck came to rest on its roof, forcing a tow. We're going to go back here to the back straightaway and see just exactly how the 48 of Gingrich got out of shape first, because that definitely led to the contact over in 3 when he was trying to merge back onto the track.
Yeah, and he tried to be gentle merging back on the track too, as to not really upset everybody, but there's only so much you can do.
Like a bit of checkup there. He was very close to the back bumper of the 52 of Stephen Gale, and as he lifted, the 71 of Jordan Clark behind him did not.
Yeah, and it's such a bang-bang thing because Clark's saying, hey, okay, we're going. And then all of a sudden, Quinn just checks up a bit, and you see that stack up. He has to pull off the track, try to safely re-enter, and I don't think he made kind of a bad move trying to re-enter in the corner. I think it was just a little bit of a hasty reaction there, maybe by the 38 of Sean Howell, who just maybe didn't see him or maybe wouldn't expect him to start to come back up on the track. And that's what really forced that caution.
A couple other drivers that got involved in that wreck, the 81 of Jeremy Jones, the 12 of Gavin Jones, the 2 of Kyle Dagger, and there may have been a couple of other ones as well.
Yeah, 16 Ben McDonald maybe took some damage off that. A lot of guys getting a little bit of chip damage from the flips or a little bit of checkups there. Jimmy Jones at 81 completely blown engine, but he was able to make it back to the road, it looks like. So really the guy that got the worst of it, as we highlighted, was Mitchell Muma for sure. As you mentioned, coming to a stop on top of his roof, meaning he had to tow. He's going to lose a lap. Good thing for him, it looks like he may be the only guy a lap down under this. So you get a couple cautions. You never know. Never know in these super speedway races what could happen and, what you could make your day still out of.
And you touched on it. I mean, a very early caution here as well. More than likely, only 2-3 laps is all that Jeremy Jones and Mitchell Muma are going to be making here today. I mean, with having an 80-lap race in front of you, I mean, most of these drivers, their goal, at least with knowing the unpredictability of the super speedways, is to make it into the second half.
Yeah, especially, once you get past that stage caution that we've seen in previous races where some guys will lay back and just kind of wait it out. After the aggressiveness of the stage break, they kind of, start to slowly make their way up there. Muma is one of those guys that typically does that, and he has had some potentially good finishes ruined late because he'll get up there in the top 5 and then something will happen. And unfortunately here today, he's definitely going to be a victim, no doubt about it. But this will be interesting for the fact of now this maybe delays your pit window a little bit. We know these guys kind of run a modified fuel load, so that creates typically a pit stop within that first half of the race. That for the most part has been done under green flag conditions usually. So an opportunity there for some of these guys that are maybe having to, burn a fast repair or whatever early on here. So that's kind of, give themselves a good point to wait it out and then be aggressive maybe in the second part of the stage.
Find this a little bit interesting, as Lucas Cram was the leader when that caution came out. Looks like he's electing to take the top side with Nick Olson. It was the 67 of Connor Horn that pushed him to the lead in the first place. I'm a little surprised he's not deciding to hook up with the 67 again here on this restart.
Yeah, it does surprise me, Seth, because typically the rule has been if you want to, be up there in front, you make sure the 67 is around you, typically obviously behind you, arguably the best pusher we've seen throughout the first half of the season. So maybe though in Lucas's mind, he's kind of wanted to trap that 67 a little bit and take control of the line before the 67 has a chance to really push him out there and then dump him, if you will. That's something else we've seen kind of in this series, is guys being smart about knowing they can push somebody way out in front and then all of a sudden take that space that they've created, be able to use that to get the lead.
Mitchell Muma has returned back to the track, currently 1 lap down, so obviously hoping for another yellow flag to come out soon, get back in the lead lap. Jeremy Jones, however, still sits on pit road, currently 2 laps down and will not be rolling off, I don't think, before these drivers come down to take the green flag for our first restart of the day.
Green flag's back out there. You mentioned Lucas Cram on the outside. Interesting decision. We'll see how much of a push he's going to get from Nick Olson.
Look down third on that inside line, that black and bright pink number 9. That is the points leader coming into this one. 2 points is Brandon Hoff over Lucas Cram, who has already led early here today and might not be leading by the time they get out of turn 2, because Connor Horn, you mentioned, a really good pusher. He's trying to get the pole sitter back to the front.
Yeah, he's doing a heck of a job. Horn probably has the best smarts when it comes to being able to really lock up bumpers and get the most out of a push when it comes to this group of guys. Now, one thing I'm going to have to really monitor here, Seth, in the early laps is how are these guys pushing through the corners. You see Nick Olson right there, that 24. He's really on the outside of Lucas Graham. He's really pushing him pretty hard, and you can see the difference on the straightaway there is where the inside wasn't quite as hooked up in the corner. I think whoever could take advantage of that the best today through the bumpiness might be the the people to watch in terms of at the end of this.
It's off for a brief moment coming out of turn 2 on the last lap. A driver blinking, not sure who it was. It looked like it might have been up inside of the top 10. That's another thing that drivers have to be aware of is the connection, because Superspeedway racing is the closest quarter type of racing these drivers do.
Yeah, and these guys have been pretty good all season. Be mindful of that, and typically if guys blinking, it's identified quick, and that driver, will drop back or do whatever they got to do. Seems like things are sorted out there. Looking at outside though, Seth is getting a little itchy back there, about third car in line or so. That's Jeff Darley in the 1. He's going to have to get out of line, maybe just remove himself from that situation.
Well, the reason that he had to back out, the 50 of Derek Newsom was all into his back bumper, pushing him towards the back of Nick Olson. So the only choice he had was to try and make a third line. I think he was hoping Newsom would go with him, but unfortunately he got stuck all by himself in that third line and now drops outside of the top 10.
Yeah, and Jared Darling, a guy who's found himself up front a lot of the time on these super speedways, whereas Derek Newsom, Seth, has really been a guy that's maybe kind of popped late, in races and doesn't usually find himself up there at front. So maybe, we got a caution out.
Caution is out as we've got, I think, a spinner back there. Number of drivers.
Yeah, see the 41, Lucas Strayer, the 5 of Kyle Majors blowing up, it looks like.
Sean Howell in the 38 going through the grass. Looks like he may have been collected up.
Let's see where that started. Oh,
41 of Lucas Strayer also smoking. Boy, there's been some hard hits, and we're not even 10 laps in.
I think it's just the kind of uncertainties where we're seeing it, because it's these corners. Those extra bumps are really kind of playing a factor, whether it's guys trying to figure out where cars are going to move, or just maybe get into the corner a bit wrong. And I think that's going to be the case here. It looks like the 5 and the 26 got together going into turn 3 there. It'd be Kyle Major and the 26 Derek Staley is what started that kind of towards the back of the pack.
You talk about the fact as well of that pushing up with the bumps in the corner, and I know that usually at the super speedways, when you're on that inside line, the car or the truck in this case on the bottom sometimes tightens up, and so you combine that with the bump going into the corner and the truck pushing up, your instinct is to actually lift a little bit to be able to help that. And it looked like that wreck actually started again with a bit of checkup, as I think it was the 5 almost ran to the back of the 52, hence all that stack up leading to that wreck.
Yeah, the crazy part is that you mentioned people will check up to try to, combat a little bit of that tightness on the inside. And that's typically actually maybe not what you want to do. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the bump has a way of kind of correcting itself. My first ever race on the sim at 08 Daytona was in the older trucks, Seth, and the legacy trucks. And sure enough, was run on the inside like third in line and hit that first big bump. It got me a little tight. I lifted, then we wrecked the whole field just because, I lifted at probably the time I shouldn't. I should have been a little bit more faithful in it. But that's a lesson that some of these guys maybe hadn't had to deal with yet. It's not a track that typically gets ran a lot now. So, some lessons I think are definitely being learned early here.
Absolutely. A couple of other drivers did get a piece of that wreck. I believe that the 20 of Brad Floyd got a little bit of it, and the 38 of Howell I thought he got involved. He actually went to the grass and actually spun in the grass, didn't make any contact with anything, so he is okay in terms of damage. And with this caution coming out, Mitchell Muma, who we saw up in the air flipping and on his roof after the completion of lap 3, he is the recipient of the lucky dog.
Yeah, good break for him considering, you thought maybe he'd go at least a couple laps down, having to tow. It turned out to be Jeremy Jones, obviously, at 81. They got the worst of everything. He's currently 6 laps down, still on pit road. But for Muma now, obviously, burning that fast repair, Seth, he's going to have to be careful the rest of the way here. But, being in a spot where you're back on the lead lap, you can really control what you want to do and, try to set yourself up. Maybe not a good first stage, considering you have burned that fast repair, but they kind of send in that last stage, you just kind of put on the line.
Looking at the one here of Jared Darling, who's just now leaving pit road. And remember, he was running around the 5th position when he got forced to that 3rd lane, faded to the back, and got some damage in that wreck. So it just shows you how one wrong move can put you in a situation that you don't want to be in.
Yeah, and in this series, we've learned that really I don't think there's any quote-unquote safe spot. Typically when you get to these plate races, people will say, okay, I want to be aggressive up front. I want to stay out of danger that way, or maybe I want to ride towards kind of the back of the first pack, or maybe even you ride beyond that. That being said, we've seen kind of wrecks develop kind of all over in this series. We've had times where you're halfway through that first stage, and all of a sudden the guys up front wreck. The sequence of green flag pit stops, it's obviously happened in the middle of the pack, the back of the pack. It's really just about matching your style with where you feel the most comfortable. I think probably the proper way is to just not be afraid of where you're at, right? If you feel you're comfortable in the back, be in the back. If you feel you're comfortable up front, be up front.
Absolutely. And different drivers have those different mentalities. I've talked to some drivers, and they say that it may be more chaotic up at the front, but usually that's where the drivers that kind of know each other are. So they are willing to be able to push, line up the bumpers, and usually have quite a huge trust factor there. I noticed a couple of drivers actually just came down pit road and topped off the fuel tank. The 16 of Ben McDonald, the 42 of Curtis Sawyer. We talked about the fact we got that stage caution that's going to be coming up. These drivers that are giving up the track position now to not come down pit road when that stage yellow comes out, and then be our race leaders when we go back green.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch to see where the fuel's at too. Typically, on Daytona, Dega, in previous races, it was about 20, 25 laps or so in terms of fuel runs. So these guys are really sitting up for maybe trying to stretch towards that stage as close as possible now that we're already on lap 11 and have had some cautions.
Again, Lucas Cram going to line up with Nick Olson. They are on the inside line this time as the green flag back in the air. We're now 12 laps into this 80-lap event. Already working our 2nd restart of the day after 2 quick yellows. An update on the drivers that were involved in the wreck. The 2 drivers that we saw with the smoke have actually returned back to the track. They are still on the lead lap, Lucas Strayer and Kyle Manger.
Sorry, up front there, Nick Olson and the 27, Alex Fox, are pole setter. A little bit of contact coming out, too. That forced Fox way up to the 3rd line. Now he's going to have to get shuffled back. While as Olson just takes control of that outside line, he's got Connor Horn behind him also.
And Brandon Hoff and Colby Wells, the 9 and the 45, actually had to go down below the yellow line in order to give room for that near incident off of turn 2. And the 45 had a little bit of trouble getting back on track. The 50 of Derek Newsom didn't really want to let him back in.
Yeah, it's really tight out there. I mean, we talk, the difference between the newer Daytona in terms of space and the Talladega. Well, you get to 08 Daytona here, and I think it's maybe a bit tighter even than the resurfaced Daytona. So I got to be really careful out there. Obviously, with the bumps, we'll talk about the effects of those. Things could get real hairy in the corners very quick.
On board here with Connor Horn, and you can see down these straightaways, not nearly as much difficulty lining up the bumpers as it is into the corner. Watch right here as they head down to turn 3. How the 9 kitty corner there is going to try and line up the bumper as best as possible, but you just don't know the truck ahead of you what kind of an entry they're going to take into that corner. Some drivers go a little high and then drive it down to pinch the car on the inside line. Some of them drive it down and actually drift up.
Yeah, and this track's a lot more punishing than the resurfaced Daytona into the corner if you make a misstep. Resurfaced Daytona, the newer one, pretty smooth all the way around, so you're going to get, some really repeatable responses in the way you enter the corner, whereas with this pumpier version in these corners, sometimes they can get squirrely, as you're seeing right there.
Colby Wells in the 45 had a handful of steering wheel in the center of 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's an extra layer for sure of mental fight, being able to go through a race at 08 Daytona here, not only have to deal with the draft and all that, but just the extra part of the corners here and being able to fight through.
Now, the one thing I'm noticing, a couple of these drivers at the tail end of this lead pack, namely the 71 of Jordan Clark, I'm seeing him get some really big runs on that inside line. So that kind of gives a bit of encouragement for these drivers, I would think, coming down to the closing stages if they're trying to manufacture a run potentially for the race win.
Yeah, and like I said, too, with this being the first time this season these drivers have seen this track, I think there is a bit of experimentation going on in the back, like you're mentioning, with Clark. Some of those guys are riding towards the back of the first pack here, just maybe kind of messing around, seeing what they can't do with some runs. It's kind of tucking away in the mental notes. Definitely could come in handy when you get down to those closing laps.
No surprise right now that all 4 of our previous race winners so far in the first 5 races are run up inside of the top 7. Cram's the leader, Olsen 3rd, Horn in 5th, and Bell in 7th. So right now, all holding down the odd numbers inside of the top 7. And as you mentioned, with the fact that this is where the season finale is going to be at, this is the venue in about 6 weeks' time that we will be crowning a champion. So you know that these drivers that at this point in time know that they're going to be locked into that playoff system, they want to set the bar and say, hey, when we get to that championship finale, I'm going to be the guy to beat.
Yeah, not only that, the good news is, too, if you're a guy out here that has a bad day all of a sudden, but you know you're kind of in a good spot to make it back here, so to speak, you could kind of still salvage something from a day like this. So really opportunity everywhere. 52 down below the yellow line there. Maybe got shoved down there. He's got to try to find his way back up. Stephen Gale.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he got help or not. The car behind him was the 71. This looks like he actually went down there of his own accord. I don't think that the 71 of Clark was right on his back bumper, and looks like maybe Gale's coming to pit road. Is this a regularly scheduled stop? Nope, actually he's not pitting. He just drifted way back.
Yeah, interesting there. Maybe felt a little unsafe. Just kind of an awkward time to be able to pull the trigger to drop back. But back up front, Brendan Hoff has used that run and swap spots with Lucas Cram. This is big because now he gains back that point he lost where Cram led, a couple laps at least to get a bonus point for lead a lap. So trying to measure and make sure he matches what Lucas Cram is doing here, it seems like.
But look at that top side there, just a 2-truck tandem with Colby Wells and Nick Olsen, and they made up just as much, if not a little bit more speed on the top side by themselves than 4 or 5 trucks on the inside line.
Well, and they were well put together. Credit Nick Olsen there because he's another guy that's been a pretty solid pusher. I wouldn't say to the level of a Connor Horn, but been pretty close to that in terms of just being able to make some runs happen. Although his partner here in Colby Wells, this is not a pairing that we've seen together a whole lot on these super speedways in the first few weeks. So we'll see if that has any effect, because you talked about trust earlier, chemistry, and as the season goes on, guys are going to get kind of more and more into their own corners of guys that they know they could trust and they feel like they can't trust. So we'll see if some extra trust here happens with 45 and 24. Oh, and they're wrecking.
That's right in the middle of the top 10. Connor Horn was involved in the 67. Driver scattering through the grass. I see the 41 of Strayer, the 12 of Jones. I think that's the 88 of Clint Spillman back there. Brady Floyd and the Tide Machine.
And that looked like it happened with Connor Horn and Spillman getting together on the backstretch. Not quite sure. It was right in that group between him, Horn, and Alex Bell. So have to see here, right in the middle of the backstretch. Oh, never mind. It's the 15 and the 88 getting together right there. It looks like maybe the 88 thought he was clear, Seth, excuse me. Been a week. But yeah, getting together and just that chain reaction. Unfortunately, Connor Horn was kind of an innocent bystander in that as well.
Stephen Gale, as well as Mitchell Muma, involved in this one as we take a look down the back straightaway. And the driver took, I think, the hardest hit out of this one was that 67 of Connor Horn. As you said, kind of an innocent victim as he went nose first up into the outside wall. It doesn't look like that hard of a hit. Oh, wow. Actually, nope. I changed my mind. The 20 car back there just clobbered the wall.
Yeah, and the 26 of Derek Stanley, the 16 Ben McDonald as well, took some hard hits in that as they were kind of running into the wreck. So definitely some guys going to have to burn those faster pairs if they hadn't already. And, with the cautions we've had now, Seth, we're getting closer to where you're going to see some of these guys have to just run what they got in this early in the race. You do not want to be in that situation where you're in fast repair, and you're just having to kind of walk on eggshells, because that's where disaster kind of finds you more so than it doesn't.
Absolutely. I mean, we had two wrecks basically there. We had the initial wreck with the 15, 88, and 67. And then we had a follow-up wreck of drivers trying to scatter left and right to avoid the 88 that was sitting in the middle of the track and the 67 of Horn that was just up ahead as well.
Yeah, and that's just, on the backstretch right there, when it happens up front like that, you got guys, trying to check up and avoid. And then, as you mentioned, that causes maybe other wrecks. And it's a mess on super speedway. Sometimes you just got to drive through the smoke and hope you make it. And there's going to be plenty of times where you don't in that situation. And it looks like pit road-wise here, pretty much all the leaders deciding to come in, Seth. I think this confirms about that 20-lap window or so in terms of fuel. So we could be seeing just a pure-on race to that lap 40, 41 stage break.
So it looks like a couple of drivers have stayed out. Derek Newsom in the 50, Jordan Clark in the 71. Now, they were on pit road back under the second yellow flag. They can still, based on the projections here of the leaders coming down 20 laps in, they could go another 10 laps on fuel. So looks like more than likely they are going to be the front row when we go back green. Another driver that's actually stayed out as well is the 16 of Ben McDonnell.
Yeah, he did come in. He used his fast repair.
Yeah.
He was involved in that wreck. So he maybe had just used it and they came back out. We'll have to see if these guys decide to pit here this time around or not. Maybe just trying to kind of do that, packing the fuel. But they may stay out. I don't know.
16 probably will be dropping to the back for an EOL because he would have come down a closed pit road to get that fast repair. And Newsom is not going to pit.
Interesting here. I think this is just them trying to kind of lonk on it for after the stage. But, man, I don't know if you want to be on an off sequence, in this type of scenario. It's tough when you get that caution at the split like this to try to, play off scenario and actually succeed, because that is what you're doing. You're basically banking on, you catching the timely cautions, right? And that's really hard to count on because guys could start cleaning it up now. We've seen a little bit more than usual, I'd say, cautions for the first half of the race. So guys might start to calm down a bit. And if that's the case and stays green, you mentioned these guys are going to have to pit here in about 10 laps or so.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the rules of super speedway racing is if you're going to come down pit road under green, find a lot of friends that are going to come down with you. If we run to that stage caution at lap 40 under the green flag, these two drivers in particular, Newsom and Clark, they're going to have to be coming down pit road somewhere around the lap 30 mark, halfway to that stage caution from this point. The only thing I can think of that might save them, they might be able to talk with some of the other drivers that are back outside of stage point territory and say, hey, look, you're not going to be able to get points in this stage. Come down pit road with us and then cycle out towards the front of the field when we eventually go back green for the second half of this race.
Right, because you're not, it's not mandatory pit under that stage break. So that'd probably be the strategy they're thinking here is, okay, if we don't get the caution, like you're saying, maybe you get a couple extra people to come down with you. Even then, that's a risky move, especially in a series where you're trying to maximize points. Track position is huge, and I'd be playing for those stage points.
Looks like a couple of drivers have actually retired from the race already as we get ready to go back green. Derek Stanley will be finishing 27th, and Jeremy Jones, who we saw get involved in that wreck back on lap 3, spent a long time on pit road trying to get the truck repaired, but he has called it a night as well. Will finish 28th. As look at Brandon Hoff jump up to the top side in front of the 71 of Clark, trying to get the race lead away from the 50 of Newsom.
And not only that, now he's got a couple truck distance between him and Lucas Graham. I think Hoff's main goal tonight, win or lose or draw, is going to be trying to finish ahead of Graham and extend that points lead. So whatever he's got to do that, I think that's what you're going to see the 9 do. We're hearing some complaints maybe from Nick Olson about the decision to go 3 wide at this point. He's not confident in people's 2 wides ability, so this is it's always interesting to hear the driver chatter about some of those thoughts.
That's Steve Rada in the 8 up on the top 3 wide, and I thought you said they might possibly settle down, but apparently that's not the case. A lot of drivers making some moves there. Who's that right up there on the top side? Is that the 5 trying to help the 3 wide situation? And there's another driver back there as well, Clint Spillman, so we're going to go 3 wide, about 3 rows deep going into 1.
Yeah, that's interesting because the 5 and the 88 had to use those fast repairs from the last wreck, so you think those would be some of the more conservative guys trying to say, okay, hey, I need to keep what I got running here. It's too early in the race, but they're saying we're going to go for it.
Yeah, we got about 5, 6 drivers in this field already that have used the fast repairs. You mentioned 2 of them. The 41 of Lucas Strayers used a fast repair. I believe the 40 of Mitchell Muma obviously used a fast repair. So a lot of drivers kind of walking on eggshells here as we're not even halfway into this one.
You see that outside line, Seth, really seems to be a little bit more together, which is kind of surprising. Oh, what happened with the move? And no, they're going.
In one of the worst places on the track in the middle of the tri-oval.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. 88's in there. There's 21 just shot in late, got involved in that one.
48's in there. Is that the 41 smoking on the outside line? I see the 5.
All those guys that we just talked about. That's the 21 smoking on the outside there, Jacob McMillan.
I was just going to ask you, too, about the 71 and the 50 being out there on 10-lap older tires, if that was going to affect them in terms of approaching these corners and being able to hold their line. And we saw it right there. I think it was the 71 got loose going into the tri-oval down at Newsom, and we saw the end result.
Yeah, and I don't think the move there by Hoff helped at all because that really took away some space as well. It made that really dicey. Although I don't think it was the cause of it, obviously. It's just, I do think that the 10-lap old tires, if it's going to affect anywhere on a super speedway, this track is probably the most susceptible to that, being able to feel that difference over the humps. And then the tri-oval is even more treacherous than, what you see at Daytona, the new version, and Talladega. So that's just, it's really tough. And now you've got some guys that are definitely going to be out of this race.
Yeah, no doubt. The 5 truck possibly could be out of this race is the second incident he's been involved in. I'm going to go back, look at the replay again here, because I put the blame on the 71, but I'm almost wondering if maybe the 50 got a little bump from behind on the inside line there that shot him up into the 71.
It was a little tight. I mean, I think there's really no one significant overriding driver that kind of caused that. I think it was a combination of a lot of things from, looking at it. It's just everything got real tight there. And, what happens at the front of the pack, guys got to check up, chain reaction starts. And definitely, I think a couple guys probably wish they had that tri-oval spot right there back.
And one of the drivers collected up in that, as you saw, was the 44 of Lucas Cram, last week's winner, second in the points. And he took a pretty good shot into the outside wall, so it looks like very much so he's going to have to use a fast repair here.
And something interesting to know as well here is that our leader, the 9 of Brandon Hoff, does have some rear end damage, it appears. From all that, he is not elected to pit and fix that. So we'll have to see if that really affects him. But with him knowing that, Cram just got involved in that wreck, I imagine he's probably just happy that, he didn't suffer big damage, obviously, because it just, it lengthens that gap between them right now in this race. It gives Hoff a little bit more of an opportunity to stay out there and pick up maybe some bonus points for leading most laps.
Yeah, and looking at these 3 drivers that are, 3 of the 4 drivers that are up here inside of the top 5, they actually, when they came down pit road, went with a 2-tire strategy. Hoff, Murphy in the 11, and Blake Trawick in the 56. So that's how the 11 and the 56 especially were able to gain all of that track position.
Yeah, and Murphy's a guy that's kind of been prone to doing that a couple of times over the first few weeks. We've seen him gain track position that way and put himself up there in the mix all of a sudden doing that. Trawick, though, he's a guy that we haven't seen a lot of up front. We see him have maybe a couple of moments, but nothing really too significant. So got some guys that are maybe approaching these races a little bit differently than what they did in the first few weeks, trying to gain ground, knowing that, as you mentioned kind of at the top of the broadcast, we're getting ever closer to that chase. So guys really trying to position themselves as they go into the final races here.
You mentioned Brandon Hoff, been very consistent this year. That's why he's the points leader coming in, but he has yet to go to victory lane. His best finish this season was second a couple of weeks ago at Talladega, as we're going to be going back green, I think, on the next lap here. But, another series that Flatout Racing Network calls runs an entire season at Talladega. And there's a guy that right now is leading the point standings, but he also has not been able to find victory lane so far. And in a lot of the interviews we have with him, he said, I would trade away every single one of those good finishes if I can just find victory lane this season. I got to wonder if that's the mentality of the 9 car here today, because he seems like he's been pretty aggressive wanting to keep that truck up at the front.
He has, and he's a guy that really tries to maximize those stage points. I talk about, like, when you get to these situations here, when you're closing in on the stage, I've seen him, make some moves to really put himself in a spot where he's trying to gain the most points. So I think there's probably a balance. He's probably happy to be the points leader, but at the same time, you want to win a race, right? I mean, even if you're the points leader, I think a lot of people say, well, hey, I'd rather have the win to kind of legitimize myself than just the points lead. So it'll be interesting to see what Mr. Hoff maybe has to say about that if we get a chance to talk to him at the end of the race.
13 laps left here until we reach that stage caution at the halfway point, as Brandon Hoff will choose the inside line with Colby Wells. These two are actually working together under that last green flag run as well on the top side, so no surprise to see that alliance continue. The outside line is going to comprise of Brett Murphy with Blake Trawick, a couple of drivers that worked their way up here on strategy, and another driver that we saw kind of fade to the back and now has worked his way back up into the top 10, Alex Fox, the pole sitter, as well as Connor Horn, who got involved in that wreck, the second yellow flag. He's now up inside the top 10 again in the 8th position.
Yeah, definitely burned that fast repair. So probably the biggest number of guys without fast repairs that in the early part of the race we've seen yet this season. Be real interested to see how they handle the stage.
Green flag back in the air. As neither line really seemed to get much of an advantage that time. I think just that Brandon Hoff's about half a truck length ahead, because that's where he was when both trucks accelerated. Now they're not really going to be lined up as much on the top side as those two on the inside line, so it looks like Hoff may have the slight advantage off of two. Nope, here comes the top side again.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a little bit more connected on that top side. You got Alex Fell and Connor Horn kind of packing that outside line, which is big because those two are the two best pushers, I would say, out of the entire group. So they could really get some momentum going for that top line. You're seeing it. There goes Brett Murphy to the lead.
And I think we're 3 wide mid-pack, or we were for a brief moment around the 48 of Gingrich, the 44 of Cram, and the 41 of Strayer. Yeah, Cram in the 44 making some moves. He wants to get back up to the front as someone's down in the apron there up ahead.
Couldn't quite spot who that was, but on Cram, Cram's trying to be able to get back up there and maximize as much points as he can to not have that gap really increase too big between him and Hoff. You see him dive down to the bottom back there. He is working his way, trying to at least through the back.
20 of Brady Floyd has now come back onto the track, but he is 7 laps down. Jordan Clark and Jacob McMillan 1 lap down apiece, and there's a driver way back there. I think that's the 42 of Curtis Sawyer, who has lost the draft as well. And we got a slow car up ahead. I think that is the 20 who merged back onto the track. Hopefully he's going to find a safe place to get out of the way of the race leaders, because they are catching him quick.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to choose to just stay down off the track. Smart move there. No sense in, putting the entire lead pack at risk. We've seen that, unfortunately, in the green flag stops a couple weeks ago. Well, it's been a few at this point. That did cause a big wreck up front. You don't want to be that guy.
Going to be 10 laps to go here. Next time around in this first stage, as the two-tire strategy has definitely worked out for your top 3, Murphy, Hoff, and Trawick. Right now, pacing the field, and Brett Murphy, currently the race leader, being pushed there by the 9.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real pressure yet from Hoff, just because Hoff is seeing that Cram has kind of fallen back a little bit. He's working his way up and got shuffled back again. So points-wise, Hoff really isn't worrying too much. I think he's not going to try to force the issue unless an opportunity presents itself here in the final 10 laps. The way that outside line's running, though, Seth, they're not really the most consistent right now, so let's see how this goes.
There's a number of drivers up here in this lead group that have already used faster pairs, the 67, the 5, the 88. I see them all up here in this lead group. As we get closer and closer to the end of this stage, knowing that there are stage points on the line, how nervous do they have to be right now, just in case things ramp up with drivers pushing and shoving, beating and banging to the line to try and get those points, knowing that they don't have another faster pair to fall back on.
I think some of those guys, your Holmans, your Bells and whatnot, they're not going to care as much for the simple fact that, they know they're fast. They know if they have a bad week or something like that, that might be able to rebound. That being said, though, I do think there's a good number of those guys, the 8 and the 5, people like that may have already burned that faster pair. They're going to be a little bit more on eggshells just because they need some good weeks. Not really great in points right now, so you need a consistent finish.
Inside line has been the preferred line in terms of momentum on the last 3 laps, but still on the top side, Blake Trawick and now new pusher Alex Fox trying to make it work. Fox went a little wide there into turn 1, thought he may be thinking about taking it 3 wide, but tucks back in line, and now Hoff says, I'll jump up to the top with you guys.
I talked about the opportunity presenting itself. That top line faded enough where Hoff knew he could use this run to try to take the lead. That's something we've seen quite a bit here in this series. It looks like it's going to be successful for the 9 there.
Somebody dropping back there, and that's a 40 of Mitchell Muma. He is going to fall back to the tail end of this lead group, as up at the front now is Brandon Hoff, being pushed by Brett Murphy, but that top side is still there as Alex Fox continues to try and help that 56 move, but the 15 of Alex Bell just doesn't seem like he's close enough to help that outside line get the momentum it needs.
Yeah, and I think that's a measured approach. Usually Bell, when he wants to be, he's one of the, I talked about him and Horn probably being the best 2 pushers. He could definitely be up there really pushing forward those top 2, but I don't know if he quite trusts them enough yet to be able to stick to them, especially in the corners. That's where you're going to get your big runs. And we're seeing Fox really making that 56 squirm a bit, so maybe it's kind of having Bill back off just enough to say, all right, I got to see how these 2 play it. I don't want to, be the cause of a wreck.
You saw how light Jordan Clark's truck was earlier on when we had our 3rd caution, and he was out there on 10-lap older tires. These guys up here towards the front that took the right sides only, are they dealing with handling issues, do you think? Or do you think that 2 tires is still enough grip to be able to manage the corners?
Boy, I was going to say I thought 2 tires was enough, but then it looks like Brett Murphy had to have a big checkup. You see how much it really cost that inside line as both the 56 and the 27 were able to clear Hoff. And so now here comes Connor Horn and Alex Bell. That was the opportunity they were waiting for, I think, and now they're all pushing on each other. And they've got Nick Olson behind them as well. That's going to be another good guy to be able to have pushing.
Mitchell Mama there as well. Muma rather, in the 40 machine. Almost looked like he nearly scraped the wall down the back straightaway. Clint Spillman in the 88 up on that top side also. Another of the drivers added to the Fast Repair Brigade is coming down to the line here. It's going to be a bit of a drag race, but that outside line has the slight advantage. And Alex Bell, by about a truck length, is going to lead that lap. 6 laps left in the stage.
Yeah, folks, if you're out there watching this, you want to know how to get better at pushing people on these super speedways, just zero in on that 67. He is an absolute pro, and look at that. He gets Alex Bell to the lead with some strong pushing. And now we'll see if Nick Olson is going to be able to really do anything with Connor Horn. As you mentioned, Muba kind of struggling a little bit to keep himself in that top line.
A little surprised that Alex Bell actually did move to that inside line, since he and Connor Horn were working so well together. Now he finds himself alongside the 67 going into 3.
Well, he knows that inside line is, if you want to control the lead, it's where you got to be. The problem is the inside line is not really together too well. As you see the 9.5, a few car lengths back, he's going to have to really close up to help that inside line.
Well, you can see the trucks dancing there as Trawick having to overcorrect the car back onto the track. Had 2 left sides down below that yellow line going through the tri-oval, as now Horn is clear for the top position.
And Muma is having some issues. He was really squirrely there, found a way to not wreck. Oh, and then we got a wreck
right there. The wall back there. Someone hit it hard, and I think it might have possibly been the 44. No, it was the 52.
Stephen Gale back there, yeah, took a big shot. He's smoking. I don't know if he's already used his fast repair or not. I know he's been involved in some wrecks.
I think the 1 was also involved of Jared Darling.
The 50 as well was in that one. Oh, big shot for that 52. And a guy who maybe went wreck avoidance pro there, which would be huge, would be that 44 of Lucas Cram. He may got out of that one somehow without much damage.
He was back there in the vicinity, and we know that he's already utilized his fast repair after getting involved in the 3rd caution of the day. And
yeah, I think you're going to have to watch that one. He just barely missed. Wow.
This was right around the tail end of the lead pack. We'll see where the contact starts, and oh yeah, is that a possible bump in the corner there of Darling into the back of Clark, possibly?
Yeah, it was one of those awkward ones, It's just, and that's what this track does create sometimes. I think is what it was that 71 of Clark just kind of kept creeping up, and Darling had a bit of a run, and just there wasn't anything he could really do with the space. The 48 was peeking inside on him. I think they all just kind of ran out of space right there, and it just took that slight contact. 50 of Newsom, unfortunately, is some bystander. The 52 of Gale, obviously another guy that just nowhere to go, gets flipped. But I think the MVP of that wreck is definitely going to be Lucas Graham, finding a way to avoid damage there.
Yeah, you saw it right there as he was just barely able to get down to the inside. It was close. I don't know, maybe made a slight bit of contact with that right front, but if he didn't, I mean, you probably couldn't have fit a sheet of paper between his car and the one.
Yeah, that might really be big time for him at the end of the race. We'll have to see how that goes out there, but this also might be the stage. I have to see by the time we get these pace laps in. If that's the case, Connor Horn made the big move at the end of the stage here to get himself the stage win.
I'm not sure if this is the stage, just based on the fact the 56 of Blake Trawick is actually on pit road. And so if this was the stage, then he would be basically giving up stage points as he was up inside of the top 5 when that caution came out.
Yeah, we're going to have to definitely check in on that. See where we're at here. I'll definitely be listening to that driver chatter, see if I hear anything. But
so this is the stage end. It would be Connor Horn winning this stage, the midway portion. Alex Bell right now in second, followed by Nick Olson. Mitchell Muma, I mean, talk about a wild 40 laps. He starts the race on his roof, barrel rolling out of 4, and then about, 37 laps later, he's going to be finishing possibly 4th in the stage caution.
Right, and that's huge because he was, I don't know if he would have lasted much longer, honestly, right there. I mean, he was having some issues up in that top line.
Right now, Alex Fox is in 5th, Clint Spillman and Kyle Manger, 2 drivers that have already used faster pairs, 6th and 7th. Brandon Hoff right now is in 8th with Brett Murphy and Gavin Jones completing the top 10. And more than likely, I think you're right that this probably would be the stage caution, because I think they would get back green probably at the completion of lap 40, I think, or maybe the start of lap 40. Maybe it's a 1-lap shootout.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some clarification on that with some race control, and unfortunately, it looks like the 50 of Derek Newsom there, he's going to retire from the race. That's a tough break. That was a guy that could not avoid bad luck today, it seemed like, for sure. So it was just kind of an innocent bystander in the wrecks he got caught up in.
Lights are out atop the pace truck, so they would go green at the start of lap 40. So I think this is going to be a 1-lap shootout, possibly for the stage, which would make sense of why Blake Trawick came to pit road, because, yeah, he's giving up the stage points, but more than likely, when all these other drivers come down pit lane when the yellow flag comes out, he would be the one that would cycle up to the front.
Right, and that's a gamble we've seen some guys definitely take over the course of the season in those situations. Just kind of, like you mentioned, forego the stage points, but maybe put yourself in a better spot for the tail end of the race. And it's going to get a little crazy if this is your kind of 1-lap stage shootout here.
And if they're running the system that NASCAR does, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, I would have to think if we're looking at this front row, Connor Horn and Alex Bell, stage win is a playoff point. And both of these drivers, being winners this season, really would want to have that playoff point heading into the postseason. Yeah,
for sure. And definitely is. It should be that same system as you would see in NASCAR with the 10 through 1 and then the extra point, as you mentioned. And, Connor Horn, I think, especially with the issues we've seen Hoff and Graham have now, where Hoff has got shuffled back a bit, Graham's had his issues, he could really stand to gain a lot today with the big stage win here in Belsport.
So a 1-lap shootout here for the first half of this race, leading up to the stage caution. And what kind of a lap are we going to see here? Is it just going to be 2.5 miles here for this lap? Green flag is in the air, and Nick Olson tried to give a shove there to Alex Bell, but at the same time, Connor Horn kind of tried to stack them up a bit.
Well, not only that, Mitchell Muma, I think, just kind of spun his tires. Oh, they're going to put him in the sucker hole.
Oh,
Muma
boy. Clint
to the
Spillman's going up
outside.
there, too. That's going to help that inside line. It's got about 5-6 trucks lined up, 4 in the middle, 2 lonely on the top side, as Bell and Olsen might be clear at the front on that bottom line, but nope, here comes the middle line back again with Horn. Big push from Hoff.
And it's just Hoff and Horn out there. Are they going to get enough momentum? You see Olsen being a little aggressive, trying to get that side wrap to dissuade them. We'll see if they get the big run here out of the corner. Ooh, the 27 jumps up late. See if that's going to help Horn. Look at the 9 just all over the back corner Horn here.
Side drafting down the front straightaway. Outside line's got the advantage, and Connor Horn is going to win the stage, it looks like here. Yep. There is the stage caution.
What a lap right there. And how about Brendan Hoff? He was shuffled back a bit going into that restart. He was about, I'd say 6th or 7th. Found some moves, got up there for second. It's not a stage win, but knowing that Lucas Cram avoided that wreck, Cram finished 18th in that stage, so that's a huge points advantage there for Hoff, and that's why he's the points leader right now. It's not because he's winning races. He's maximizing opportunities.
Only 4 corners, 2.5 miles, 1 lap. Brandon Hoff went from 9th to 2nd on that 1 lap. I mean, you know, if this guy is back outside the top 5 and we get a late race yellow, be watching for that 9 truck to make his way to the front.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's something he's been really good at, and that's why he's been able to put himself consistently in decent finishing spots. You know, just knowing when to go and when to get those moves up there. I don't think you saw this one when it happened, but early in the season, Connor Horn and Alex Bell made an even bigger jump. I think they were like 18th and 19th, and I'm not kidding you, in a lap and a half, Seth. Third lined it at Daytona, and just them two went from all the way back there to challenging for that stage win. A similar scenario, something to behold. So there's some guys that really know how to maximize their runs.
Yeah, people say that super speedway racing is just simply hold down the throttle and turn left. But no, there is an art to super speedway racing, and a lot of drivers know how to utilize that, as Connor Horn has picked up the pace truck, and undoubtedly we're going to see most everybody come down pit road, with the exception of a couple of drivers outside of the top 15 that took the opportunity to come down pit road under the last caution. So more than likely it'll be Blake Trawick and Steve Rada that will be getting us back underway, assuming that they stay out under this yellow flag. But Connor Horn is the winner of the first stage here at Daytona. These drivers getting set up for the second half of this race now to find out who's going to be taking the checkered flag at the midway point of the season. As these drivers make their pit stops here and we get ready for the restart, we're going to take a commercial break here at the halfway point. You won't miss a thing. You'll see these pit stops as we go FRN side by side.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the Veterans of Foreign Wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
Most everyone involved in sim racing always wants that edge or even make the experience a little bit better, or in this case, a little bit more in depth. Enter iRacing iFlag. iFlag is a simulation signal box with software designed by Peter Vostro. When you are behind the wheel in iRacing, your eyes are looking down the track or maybe even in the rear or side view mirrors. You may not notice or even hear when the caution comes out, when your car is damaged, or if you get black flagged, or even notice the car beside you. Yes, iFlag will point out the signs and tell you where that car is. It just makes iRacing more real and can help you become a better driver. We also offer iRacing iFlag Digital Pit Box. This small box is a great addition to any sim rig. With only 3.5 inches wide, it gives you all the information you need, including how many laps completed, how much fuel you will need to finish, what lap you need to pit on, laps till your fuel is empty, as well as weather and track conditions. It also switches when you come down pit road for more information, including what lap you're pitting under, tire wear, laps on tires, fuel average, and much, much more. To see more info, check us out today at iracingiflag.com.
Getting ready to go back, green flag racing for the second half of this race here for the SARG Superspeedway Series. These drivers taking part tonight in the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge 200 at Daytona 2008. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Tyler Riggs. And I mean, Tyler, we know that when we get to the second half of the race, the aggressiveness kicks up, but we saw some awfully aggressive racing in the first half, so I'm a little bit nervous for some of these guys that have already used their faster pairs.
Yeah, and as we go green here, Lucas Cram, one of those guys that rolling the dice a bit, was one of the few to stay out, it looked like, under that stage break there. So we'll have to see how he plays it. I wonder if we'll see kind of a reverse of things. We saw a very aggressive first half. Maybe guys will kind of calm down a little bit here for the second half. And we'll see that aggressiveness kick back up with about 5 to go.
We saw a lot of strategy actually take place under that stage caution. Lucas Cram, as you said, he stayed out. Blake Trawick and Steve Rada, they won the two-tire strategy, and we saw Connor Horn in the 67 sitting on pit road for nearly a full lap. Now, he's still on the lead lap, but back in the 18th position, so kind of a bit of a question mark of what was going on there.
Yeah, maybe just trying to say, okay, I won my stage, I'm going to put myself at the back right now and just ride it out, and then kind of reinsert himself there at the end. We'll have to see for sure. But everybody else, it seems like, for the most part, wanting to be up front here. All the same faces we saw in that first stage. Maybe a couple new ones. See Gavin Jones at 12 up fourth truck on the inside line now. That's a guy that had to avoid some wrecks and maybe got in a couple as well. He's put himself up here in the top 10.
When you talk about Connor Horn possibly just riding now, if you look back there coming out of turn 2, there's about 3 or 4 trucks lined up. He is the lead truck in that pack. So definitely not going to be able to, for the moment, be up in this lead group, and I'd say that's a pretty safe distance in case something happens up in this lead pack, which nearly just did, as Steve Rada and Nick Olson nearly got into each other through 3.
Nick Olson, that's a guy that's looking for a good finish, has had some opportunities throughout the season here so far to, win more than his one race that he has. He won the 3rd race there at Daytona, but he's definitely been in position for a couple more. Just trying to, just like everybody else, really trying to put yourself in a spot where you're gaining some good points on the day and maybe just getting that win. You just sneak that one win. That's all the confidence you may need right there.
That's why the super speedways are so unpredictable, because as you said, a winner this season is Nick Olson, and he's been in position to win a couple of more, but that one win he's got on the year is only one of 2 top 5s he's had on the season. So sometimes the super speedways have worked out for him, sometimes they haven't.
Yeah, and when he has wrecked, it's been late, so you don't really get the opportunity, to make up those spots at that point. That's probably the worst nightmare for these guys, just knowing how every point matters, and you don't want to be one of those guys swept up in a late incident where you really don't get a chance to kind of regain those spots. Something to note about that Connor Horn being back there, the guy pushing him is Alex Bell. So that's 2 guys that really like to work together and, know how to be able to just maximize their 2-truck push. So I think it's definitely some strategy. Say, okay, let's hang back here, maybe avoid, the first part of what could be an aggressive start to the stage. Maybe they're trying to wait it out a little bit till the pit stop. I don't know.
Well, they actually have now caught up to the tail end of this pack, too. So that two-truck tandem has been able to reel in the side-by-side racing up ahead of them as Cram continues to show the way. That outside line still kind of holds steady around the second position, Brandon Hoff and Blake Trawick. The reason I don't think they're getting a whole lot of momentum, that second truck on the outside line of Steve Roddick, he's slipping up quite a bit going into these corners, and the car behind him of Nick Olson is having to lift a little bit, I think, because he enters in a little bit lower, and the last thing he wants to do is get into that left rear quarter panel of Rada. So I think that's stifling the momentum just the least little bit.
Yeah, and I don't think Olson enjoys necessarily having to lift a bit, but it's smart by him because he knows kind of one of the rules of super speedway racing. If you don't feel like the guy in front is comfortable getting a push, you don't push him, right? And you mentioned how Rada's not really right now the most consistent off into those corners, so he's just giving Rada that space, trying to let him to figure it out a little bit, and it sounds like Rada's going to take himself out of this top line. It looks like he's calling over the radio to go around, basically. He's going to go high, so that's probably a bigger indicator right there that Rada wasn't really comfortable with what he was doing.
One thing that I've noticed here, and I know that Daytona is usually a little bit more narrow than Talladega Superspeedway is. Talladega can hold them 4 wide, Daytona usually about 3 wide. I've not really seen many trucks, with maybe the possible exception of the 40 and the 88 near the closing stages of that first half of the race, venture up to that third line and see what's up there. Really, that's been the drop back line. We just saw Steve Rada drop back there. We've seen a couple of other trucks drop back there. So do we see anybody maybe go up there and try and see what that third lane has to offer to maybe utilize that in the closing stages?
I will think there will be a select few. And by those select few, I mean probably your Connor Horns, your Alex Bells, maybe a Nick Olson, maybe a Brandon Hoff. But I think for the most part, that's going to be, as you mentioned, a drop back line or just a voided line for most guys because they're not going to feel comfortable in what they're doing up there. I think Horn and Bell are probably the most two that are the most experienced in terms of what they've showed, the first few weeks of the season of really being able to know what they're doing up there whenever they want to make a move. So that'll definitely be something to monitor. Got some slow cars they're working by here. This could get interesting. It's like the 71 and 16.
Yeah, they're going to stay low and out of the way. That's Bren McDowell and Jordan Clark. McDowell just got put a lap down. Clark now 2 laps down. As Stephen Gale in the 52 still sits on pit road. Still only 4 drivers at this point out of the race. And your top 2 in points now side by side to the line. Advantage inside line, Brandon Hoff.
Yeah, and Hoff just, once again, finding a way to use those runs to kind of muscle his way up to the front. He's been, it seems like a little bit more aggressive today about that. That's something that typically, like Connor Horn and Alex Bell and Nick Olson were very proficient at, I noticed, in the first few weeks. So to see Hoff now starting to do it a bit more, maybe he's kind of learned a bit from those guys and really starting to master that a bit more. So it'd be the right time when you're the points leader. Your points lead has shrunk a little bit. Definitely want to be able to be at the top of your game for that moment.
Boy, you saw there the 56 of Blake Trawick got his left sides down on the paint line. And it looked like the back end wanted to snap around. Nice job of keeping that truck straight, but you can see how that's lost the inside line. All that momentum as Olson pushes Cram back to the front. Just to touch real quickly again on that third line possibly forming. Also, we talk about how that inside line with the bumps there, it pushes you up about a half groove. Well, we're also seeing that middle line kind of push up as well. And so if you do go to that outside line, there's no guarantee that the trucks that are in the middle line are going to be able to hold it there. They may come up about halfway into your lane, squeeze you up into the wall.
Yeah, that's why I think it's going to be a very select few who even try to venture that third line. Just because, as you mentioned, the space gets so tight here. Guys are a little bit bumpy. The marbles are not very fun up near that wall at this track. I mean, they will really try to suck you into that wall if you're not careful. So definitely going to be one of those not very venture pass, and it may not even come into play. I mean, who knows? Guys just may say forget it altogether.
All right, so we've seen quite a number of yellow flags in the first half of this race. Took away really any type of pit strategy under green flag conditions. If we go another 10 laps, we're looking at the possibility of these drivers having to make green flag pit stops. So, obviously I hope that during practice they got the opportunity with the track conditions to see what it's going to be like getting onto pit lane. But some of these guys may be heading into some uncharted territory here today.
Yeah, and for the most part, when we've seen these guys have green flag stops at, the Daytonas, Talladegas, they've been pretty good. A couple times you had a couple guys maybe get together, things of that nature, but was very far and few in between. That being said, this pit road entry is probably going to feel a bit more narrow. You're going to have that grass to deal with coming off turn 4, and it kind of takes away some of that space to really spread out and get comfortable like you would see at Dega or Daytona, the repaved surface. So that's going to be interesting to watch. That's a good point to say, who's practiced the best in practice of at least getting that experience down and make sure they can score.
Lucas Cram now going to get the push on the top side. He'll drop down in front of Brandon Hoff, taking the race lead. Now Olsen seems to be the guy that's pushing everyone to the lead. He pushed the 9 to the lead, he dropped down. He pushed the 44 to the lead, he dropped down. Now he's trying to push the 56 of Blake Trawick to the front.
Yeah, when you don't have Horn or Bell up here, I think Olsen definitely takes that spot as the guy to be able to do that in terms of being the best pusher in that sense. We'll see if Trawick can handle Olsen really being on him, though. We're seeing him have some issues a little bit, trying to stay steady, and that's kind of the biggest thing. Can you keep yourself steady long enough to let that guy give you that big shove?
I mentioned the fact coming into this race that you've got really 3 drivers up there at the top of the point standings that have shots of moving up or down points-wise. Brandon Hoff, Lucas Cram, Connor Horn, all separated by 16 points. But then you got a whole group of drivers that have 6-point separation from 4th on down through 7th. And one of those drivers, 4th in the standings, 51 points back. You talked about him already. Gavin Jones in that 12 truck. Very good run for him right now. Currently scored unofficially in the 7th position. And I don't think he's used a faster pair. I've seen him in the grass a couple of times avoiding wrecks, but I think that truck still has a faster pair in his hip pocket and being very good here today, very consistent, working his way up into the top 10, and he stayed there.
Yeah, and he's been one of those guys, Seth, that really doesn't make a lot of noise till later in the race. Typically he waits until you get some cautions, you get some guys that have kind of filtered out, and then that's when you see him kind of make his move. After he knows, you're going to have a bit of a smaller front pack, it seems like. So with all the wrecks early here, he's definitely, I think, ahead of schedule in terms of that. It'll be interesting to see if maybe he gets a bit aggressive going for the win, because he's been one of those guys that's just been, able to find himself in some good spots at the end of a race. Ooh, had a little bit of a tight moment there trying to get around the 71, but looks like they got through it.
71 and the 16 yet again, and boy, that really stacked them up going into 1. That's Blake Trawick. He's trapped on the top side, falling to the back. Alex Fox is now trapped up there as Nick Olsen decided to dive to the bottom.
Yeah, and also Fox and Hoff made a little bit of contact there going into 1. That kind of forced Fox up where he probably didn't want to be, and that's where you saw part of that chain reaction come through right there, but they sorted it out. Good job to make sure nobody wrecked. As we've seen, that's turned into some bad scenarios early in this race.
Yeah, really tough place for drivers that are slow to be able to get out of the way there in the tri-oval, because there's not quite as much grip down on the apron of the front straightaway. A lot of drivers, they say that's where the car or the truck in this case gets the lightest, and when you run down there, there's no guarantee that truck's not going to slide back up into traffic, which is why you saw both the 16 and the 71 kind of hold their line on the inside line. You also saw the 21 of Jacob McMillan. He got put a lap down. And I believe that the 42 of Curtis Sawyer, he's not too far away from also being put a lap down. We right now have 19 drivers up in this lead pack, all of them currently on the lead lap.
We should start seeing the pit window open up here in the next couple laps. Not surprise me if you start seeing these guys really look to pit probably around, I'd say maybe 62 might be a sweet spot where you're, not trying to overextend your run, as much as you need to, but you can still obviously make it on fuel at that point. So as you notice, it's getting a little less 2x2 now here, especially at the front of the pack. Guys are starting to single file out a bit more. So we'll see if that signals guys are going to start coming down here within the next couple laps.
Just saw Clint Spillman, the 88. He just tucked down on the inside line. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we may end up seeing some drivers pit this lap, just based on the fact we've only got about 3 trucks. Now make it 4 trucks up on that outside line.
Yeah, and usually these guys split up into 2 groups, so we'll have to see how many kind of groups decide to come together. It looks like, I would imagine, maybe you see kind of that back half of the pack decide to go first. Not seeing anybody pit this time around as I'm digging through the back of the field there, but something interesting to watch is the fact that Connor Horn and Alex Bell are still 2+ seconds off the pack, and that's kind of a, that's tough because typically on these green flag stops, you want to be closer to that front pack. You don't want to lose a lot of time.
Yeah, the field usually gets broken up a lot more after green flag pit stop cycle around, and they do, I think, maybe have the draft of that second group up ahead of them, so I don't know if maybe that'd be the group they'd come to pit road with or not, but these drivers, they've been out here consistently running 185 miles an hour around this racetrack.
They're pitting this time. Got some pitters this time.
Got to get it down to 55 miles per hour here as Cram is in. Olsen, wow!
Wells maybe touched them just a bit, but those three coming in, looking through the rest of the pack, you got the 2 and the 11 as well pitted. So it looks like maybe about 5 or 6 trucks. Not really the biggest group here that pitted.
No, not at all. And so you have to wonder how that's going to play out here in terms of how much speed they're going to have. And of course, as well, it's all about execution because there's no guarantee for those drivers that the 5 drivers that came down are all going to leave together. If someone gets a speeding penalty, if someone overshoots their pit stall, they're more than likely going to lose that group, and you could leave with only maybe 2 or 3 drivers coming out with you.
Absolutely. It looks like this second group now is going to come in, and it's a bigger group. It's going to be ducking down. Oh, really? It's only Muma maybe out of this front group that decides to come in this time.
And it will only be the 40.
Oh, and he's in the grass. He missed it a bit.
Another driver was actually behind him, Gavin Jones, in the 12. And Muma's going to, I think, have to come back onto the track and try coming back down pit road this next time around.
He made a really late decision there, and I think he thought there's going to be some more people with him trying to pit. So definitely an awkward situation. That's a big mistake for that 40. He's going to have to hope for maybe a caution now.
Lost a lot of time there. And thusly will be losing a lot of positions as he was running around 7th spot when he ducked down, headed for pit road. We'll wait and see now here with this lead group if Alex Fox, yeah, looks like he may be coming down. Here comes Hoff, here comes Manger, and just about everybody in this lead pack is coming in.
Ooh, and Hoff really locked it up. Oh, and you got the 41 back there making some contact. Huge group coming in here.
So difficult when you got so many drivers coming to pit road to choose who's going to take which line on entry into pit road. Some drivers like to enter right down against that inside wall. Some drivers like to swing it out wide near the commitment cone.
And we'll see who came out with penalties or not. I hear maybe that 67 Horn might have got a penalty. That'd be huge because they had just caught up to that front pack. So if that's the case, they've then ruined their chance of being able to really insert themselves up there. It looks like, though, from that first group, Seth, it's going to be Lucas Cram, Nick Olson, the 45 of Kobe Wills. We're going to overtake all these guys coming off pit road here.
Jared Darling is coming out of pit road right now. Looks like he is, for the moment, going to be scored the race leader, but there, as you said, there's going to be the exchange for the lead. 3 trucks flying by as Lucas Cram will go back to the point, and to confirm what you just said, yes, indeed, the 67 of Connor Horn did get hit with a speeding penalty, is just now leaving pit road. Mitchell Muma has actually brought his car now into his pit stall, and looks like the 41 of Lucas Strayer, he's got an extended stay on pit road also. I don't know if he made any contact with somebody when we saw that big group of cars come to pit lane or what the situation is for him, but now he's fallen a lap down.
Yeah, I think he had a big lockup and maybe made some contact. He might have got nailed with a unsafe entry or something like that. I'm not sure, but either way, tough break for sure. And now those guys are going to be relying on cautions to be able to really get them back into the mix.
Steve Rada down pit road in the 8, and I think maybe he might have missed his pit stall or something because he was on pit road a lap ago and now back down into his pit stall. Is at the front. It is Cram, Olsen, and Wells. They're enjoying, for the moment, a 1.3 second lead back to Kyle Manger, but you've got about maybe 5-6 trucks in this pack trying to reel in 3 trucks.
Yeah, and if it's Connor Horn right now looking at this, he's probably kicked himself because he was with Alex Bell when they pitted, and look where Bell's at. He's going to be right up here in the top 5. worked out perfect. But when those mistakes happen, all of a sudden you lose some opportunities like that. How about Kyle Major? He's been in a couple wrecks or had to avoid a couple wrecks. I don't know if he's used that fast repair yet or not, but either way, he's put himself in a spot where maybe he kind of sneaks away by this.
Yeah, Manger has actually used a fast repair, and after last week's race at Michigan, he was the driver that gained the most spots in the standings, moved up 8 spots from 21st up to 13th, 92 points back from the points lead. So definitely coming into Daytona with some momentum, and he has now allowed that second group to catch up to the top 3. So we're about to have about a 7 truck pack, maybe 8 or 9, if Trawick and Spillman can catch up as well. You see them back there just entering into turn 1.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think the biggest loser in all the green flag pit stop exchange probably going to be Brandon Hoff and Gavin Jones back there. Like, those two were up front, and then just, you talk about the execution part and how big that is. Clearly, something kind of went wrong for them, and it just shows, how difficult it can be, because now all of a sudden they've lost all this time, and they got to hope something happens to just be able to get a chance to catch back up and have a shot.
67 of Connor Horn, he just got put a lap down, so he would be in the free pass position should we get a caution. And with all the drivers we see currently back behind this top 9, I think there's a lot of drivers that are lobbying, hoping for a caution to come out here as these laps are ticking away. Their opportunity to have a shot at winning this race is dwindling every single time that a lap is gone. And the thing is, though, they want the caution, but they don't want to be the caution.
Right. Like you mentioned, Horn there is now in the pass spot. Yeah, he's hoping for a caution, but considering that this is the most put-together pack, it seems like there's a high chance that if the caution happens, it's from this pack, which means he has to dodge the wreck, or if he gets caught up, he loses that free pass, and it goes to the next available driver.
And let's just say we don't have a caution. That 67 of Connor Horn could be the X factor in this, because with him being a lap down, if we get down to the closing stages, he's already got 2 trips to victory lane. He could maybe pick one of these drivers out of this lead group that he wants to try and help push to the win. And I have the feeling, just based on the fact of what we saw earlier here just before those pit stops began, it might be that 15 of Alex Bell.
Oh, watch out here. They're going to avoid a lap car.
Oh, gracious.
It was Clark that they were trying to avoid right there. And boy, that was wild.
Alex Bell got Darling there in turn 1.
Oh boy. That was some wild stuff. And not sure what happened to Rada. Rada's not happy with them in that 8, so maybe that was further back with him and Mubo, but still, my goodness, that was close. I was going to say, though, for Horn, probably it'd be Bell would be the guy that he's going to be pushing. Typically, those two like to work together. I believe they are teammates, so there you go.
We talked about at the top of the program, no driver this season that has started from the pole has gone on to win the race. Alex Fox trying to be the first. He started P1, and Kyle Manger just pushed him to the lead.
And that's such a tough thing to do, because there's so many. Oh, there's that caution.
And it looks like it's going to be Lucas Strayer in the 41. Oh, there's a couple of cars back here. The 48 of Quinn Gingrich. And I believe that might have been the 2 of Kyle Dagger that also got collected up.
Yeah, I think you're right. Oh, yeah, it was. Looks like, oh, no, Strayer hooked Dagger right there. There was just a 3-truck group. And Strayer made just a bit of a wrong push in the corner and just took the 2, and then that got the 48. 48 goes just barrel rolling down the corner there. And how about that break for Connor Horn, who's
absolutely
now the guy that's going to be on the lead lap. It was Gingrich who had actually just went a lap down, but obviously with him being involved in the wreck, doesn't matter.
This actually opens up the door for a lot of drivers. I mean, you've got Brandon Hoff. He's now back in the hunt. Gavin Jones, Brent Murphy, who spent a good portion of this race up inside of the top 10, breathes new life for a lot of different drivers here. And I'm not sure about that 48 car. I know he had some rear end damage on his right rear quarter panel early on in this race. It has been repaired. I don't know if it was done by his pit crew or if it actually was a fast repair. We'll have to wait to see if indeed he did have a fast repair available or not, but that was definitely a wild ride, a hard shot, and if he doesn't have a fast repair available, that is effectively taking him out of this race.
Yeah, and it's definitely been a war of attrition today for a lot of these guys with the early cautions and trying to survive some of them. But you mentioned, Hoff and Jones and some of those guys coming back into it. How about the 38 of Shane Howe? He's been involved in some wrecks. Now he's got a clean truck, it looks like. Maybe he'd use that fast repair. He's going to get a chance to catch back up now. So it's still going to be a good about probably 14, 15 trucks maybe that are going to be able to throw their, name into the hat here for the mix at the end.
And we're going to be going green with less than 10 to go, and there's no guarantee that this is our last caution as well. I mean, you got guys back there like Mitchell Muma, Steve Rada, Jacob McMillan, Curtis Sawyer. I mean, these guys are a lap down. They're going to be battling just as hard as the drivers battling for the win to try and be in the lucky dog position should we get another caution flag. Because I think these drivers, if we had another quick yellow come out, we would actually be able to get back green. So there's still something on the line for those guys.
Well, and even if that's not the case and you just go to green whites, I mean, hey, you've seen it where you could be back in 15th and, make your way up there into the top 5 all of a sudden in a lap. So who knows, right? I mean, it's a great point as far as those guys really trying to battle to stay in that lucky dog spot. But of course, at Superspeedways here, you also got to make sure you don't get involved in the wrecks. So yeah, kind of do a little bit of mirror driving and looking forward as well.
Brett Murphy and Jared Darling, they both came down pit road. Looks like they both took on some tires. They are going to be restarting back in 12th and 13th with only 13 trucks on the lead lap. Maybe not that bad a call, but as you mentioned, got to make sure that you get through those wrecks. And if you're starting back there in the midway portion of the field, you're going to definitely have to keep your eyes alert on everything that's going on around you, both in front and behind.
Yeah, and I really wonder, we wondered a little bit about how the tires are going to affect this track. Mentioned how this is probably the one plate track where you're going to feel it the most. Track temp really isn't too bad. We're looking at about 77 degrees right now, so I can't imagine that with the older tires it's going to hurt you that bad. So that may not be as big of a factor as we thought, up front with some of these guys on these restarts, having to try to make sure they handle the truck properly. But this is interesting. I really think Alex Fox is in a good spot here just because the 5 and the 45, Seth, are two guys that have not found themselves up here in the top 5 contending for wins really at many points in the season late in the race. They've been up there kind of maybe at the midpoint of the race, but one thing or another, they get wrecked, this and that. We'll have to see how they handle this. This may be an advantage for Fox.
See, the lights are out atop of the pace truck. We're going to be going back green flag racing with 7 laps to go. So if you're these drivers up here towards the front, I mean, are you starting to make the moves now for the race win? Or are you kind of setting yourself up just in case we end up having another quick caution come out and have a shootout at the end?
I mean, I think at this point, you kind of just got to go, right? If you're up front, whatever, you just got to put yourself in your best spot right now. I mean, there's no reason to really be cautious. The one thing you don't want to do, obviously, is cause a wreck, so you got to be somewhat calculating your moves. But as we know here, Seth, 6-7 laps on a super speedway, potentially more with green whites, that's all the time in the world to make the moves you need.
We've had a problem with one of our drivers that's been up really in the top 5 all day long. Our winner from 3 weeks ago at Daytona, Nick Olson, has dropped out of the server. I don't know if that was a manual connect or if that was connection issues, but it looks like he may not finish out this race.
Yeah, it looks like that was connection issues. That's tough, and that just speaks to more what Olson's dealt with. He's really, I talk about being in spots, and then something happens. So there's another one you could add to the books.
Man, what a tough break there for Nick Olson. Came into this one 5th in the point standings, but the green flag is back out. 7 laps to go as Fox and Manger will lead them down to turn 1, and they're starting to stack up from that 3rd row on back.
Yeah, and I'm really looking to see what Hoff, Bell, and then Connor Horn further back does on this restart, and within these first couple laps, how aggressive are they going to be of trying to get themselves up into that top 3?
Inside line formulated, the best through 1 and 2. Outside line here, Clint Spillman trying to push Kyle Manger. We'll see if they can make the speed on this straightaway. Looks like they're doing it as we got a truck down in the grass staying out of the way of the leaders.
That Strayer in that 41, I don't think he's at full power at all, so make sure he's very clearly out of the way.
Now the draft up on the top, trying to tighten up again as they lose a little bit of ground through 3 and 4. Fox is clear for the top spot, trying to bring Colby Wells in the 45 along with him. But that outside line, again, gets the better run out of the corner and onto the straightaway.
Yeah, it's Spillman who's could be the hero here in that outside line if he really finds a way to hook up with the 5. But he's got to be careful. You see him kind of peeking out. You got to make sure you're not hitting the wrong parts of the bumper. We just saw the wreck with the 2, the 41, the 48, and that was the problem here. You don't want to get too antsy and cause a big issue at the front of the pack late.
And remember, with us closing in at the end of this race, those 3 trucks in the outside line, the 5, the 88, and the 44, they've all used their faster pairs. So if they get caught up in a wreck here, it's their race done.
It's their race done, but everybody, you got to remember too, each sponsored race this series has, it's $10 on the line. So these guys are racing for that $10 as well. I know that's definitely helped to some of the antsiness at the end of these races. Look at the 5 though, Major, just doing all he can. Ooh, look at this side draft there with the 88.
Not necessarily certain that Connor Horn got the lucky dog under that yellow. They're still scoring him 1 lap down, so there may not have actually been a free pass truck under that yellow due to the fact that you said the 48 would have been in line for it, but was caught up in the wreck.
Typically it goes to the next guy, so I wonder if Horn maybe, I'm not sure what he did. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it did go to somebody else, not Horn. So tough right there if that's the case. Either way, though, Kyle Major up front here. He's got Fox pushed on Fox. Seth, we'll see what he does. He may just kind of play nice. We've seen guys on that inside line get big shoves and then take advantage of that, jump to the outside. Oh, the 45 Wells.
Spinner, and he's going to save it, it looks like. Colby Wells, brings it back up the track. He's going to loop it around on the front straightaway. Is there oncoming traffic? Still green.
He's still not facing straight. He's trying to get it back going. Finally gets turned around. He's starting to roll, so I think we're staying green. And in the madness, the 88 Clint Spillman has taken advantage and gone to the lead.
Spillman to the point, but here's the top side. That's going to be Lucas Krim and Gavin Jones working together. 2-truck tandem, now 3 trucks as Brandon Hoff jumps up to that top side as well.
Told you about Gavin Jones really presents himself late in races. And sure enough, here he is in that 12 truck trying to make a difference and get that top 5, maybe a win.
Remember we told you Brett Murphy and Jared Darling, they came down pit road under that last yellow to put on tires. They're now 4th and 5th on that outside line, trying to take advantage of that extra grip.
Will it pay off? Those big question, because they're starting to run out of time to make moves. Getting down to about 3 to go here, Seth. Who's going to be able to make that 3rd line work? Will we see the 3rd line come into play?
I'm trying to see anybody in this field that has even gone up there and tried it, and the only driver I really see that has ventured up there is leading this race. So I don't think Clint Spillman's going to be going up there at any point in these final stages, as here comes Cram. Big push from Gavin Jones into 3.
Gavin Jones doing a phenomenal job right now, making sure Cram's getting those runs. That's what you got to do when you're on the man on the outside. You want to push that guy to the lead, so then you can lead the line late here, control your own fate.
Ooh, we nearly had contact there between Treywick and I think that was Darling off of turn 4. They keep it together. We've got about, I think it's 12 trucks, make that 11 trucks up in this lead pack with a shot of winning this race. 2 laps to go. If they make it back around, we'll get to the checkered flag as the car was just put up in the wall. Oh, I think he's going to save it. I think that might have been the lap machine.
It was Mitchell Muma, yeah, who got tagged there by the 2 of Kyle Dagger. You mentioned they were going to be battling for that. Oh, and then who got a huge, everybody's splaying out on the back stretch, and they save it. The 27, though, was stuck on below the other line.
Andy Fox saying, let me back up. He's going to put the 15 of Alex Bell 3 wide, and he's going to get into Murphy. That's going to be a big wreck in 3 and 4.
And that was a saving grace for Lucas Cram there, because he about got turned off the 88 of Clint Spillman, but they wrecked behind him. Jared Darling's involved. Murphy, there's a lot of trucks involved in that one. Connor Horn trying to hopefully avoid the wreck. I don't know if he did. He may not get his lap back.
And with that caution coming out, we did not get to the white flag, so it's going to be an overtime green-white checkered.
One of
that was a lot of our front runners.
Yeah, right up there in the main pack. Craziness going on. I mean, I don't know. I didn't quite see what happened on the backstretch because they got all kind of, I don't know, they got spread out there with something going on. And man, it was just craziness everywhere, and then they get off into the corner and they all wreck. So
Well, the backstretch was actually some door banging between the top two, Lucas Cram and Clint Spillman. And because of that contact, they both lost momentum, and everybody had to find somewhere to go with the run that they had.
yeah, they did an excellent job to sort it out until you got to the corner, you know, and that's just, boy, that got just wild. And now, I don't know how many clean trucks we got left. We know we got a few up front here. Cram, Gavin Jones, Spillman probably clean. The 5, the Major clean, but everybody else, Seth, has probably at least a little bit of damage.
Connor Horn got a little piece of that one. 38 of Howell was doing a good job. Shane Howell was staying out of trouble. Alex Bell gets a piece of it. A lot of trucks trying to scatter around. I think that's the yellow number 21 of...
Jacob McMillan.
Yeah, he was able to get through it. I think when that caution came out, that Connor Horn was in the free pass position, but with getting that little bit of contact, again, don't know if he's going to get the free pass or not. I don't know if just getting a slight little bit of contact, but not necessarily spinning, qualifies you as not being involved in the wreck or not. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and that'd be tough for him if that's the case, but that's the way it goes sometimes. But man. So it looks like Lucas Cram going to be the leader. He's going to have a little bit of fender damage after that contact with him and Spillman there. But we're down to what, 12, maybe 13 trucks if Horn gets his lead lap back that will have a shot. And maybe half of those trucks probably have enough horsepower left to really be able to contend, because some guys took some big shots in that wreck.
Yeah, one driver I think that's out after this is going to be Jared Darling. He's already used his faster pair. He's on pit road trying to get that truck as best repaired as possible. I think 4 drivers may have come down and used their faster pairs here under this caution. Alex Fox, Blake Trawick, Brett Murphy, and Alex Bell. And they're going to be restarting in 6th back through 9th.
Something I want to touch on too here. You know, we mentioned that 5 Kyle Major jumped up the most after last week in points. Well, we know Strayers had issues. Brady Floyd had issues earlier in this race. Those guys were 8th and 9th in points coming in, whereas Major was 13th, but he was within striking distance of probably from about 12th through 8th, in front of him. And with those guys having issues, we'll see what happens with Wells and Murphy. We know Wells kind of got spun. That was a big caution for Wells, actually, Seth, because he was behind the pack. Now he's going to have a chance to be up here. But that 5 Major could really put himself in a spot to even pole vault some more in the points here, depending on what happens on his green light check. Yeah,
there's only 2 races after tonight until the playoffs begin. And to your point, there's a lot of drivers here right now could be setting themselves up pretty well to gain some points heading into those final 2 regular season races. You already talked about Manger, but also Clint Spillman up here in the second position. He's 10th in points. Alex Bell, despite getting involved in that wreck, I mean, he's still up there in the 8th position. He was 7th in the standings. So big opportunity for a number of these drivers. And it looks like the free pass was given to the 21 of Jacob McMillan. So Connor Horn still going to be trapped a lap down.
Yeah, he didn't want to see that. I think it's just, you mentioned him just barely getting involved in that wreck. And that's what did it for him of not being able to get that free pass. Points-wise, another guy I want to mention, Robbie Lyons not making an appearance tonight. He's 6th in points coming in, tied with Nick Olson. Obviously, with Olson disconnecting and Robbie Lyons not being here, that kind of highlights even more what we're talking about. Some of these guys behind him really having a shot to jump up there after tonight.
If my calculations are correct, we're going to have 13 drivers on the lead lap and go back green, but only 11 of them, I think, are going to be up to speed. Jacob McMillan has already used his faster pair, and I think he's slightly off the pace. Jared Darling, as mentioned, had already used his faster pair and spent nearly a minute and a half getting that truck repaired. So it looks like it's going to come down to 11 drivers here. And again, much like it was just moments ago, if they take the white flag, we race back to the checkers, as it's going to be Lucas Cram getting us underway, trying to see if he can get ahead of the 88 and tuck down. But Spillman, with help from Gavin Jones, he's got the inside line going.
Gavin Jones has been an excellent pusher down the stretch here, kind of a unsung hero. Can he be a big factor? Can he keep Spillman up in front, or is he going to make a move for himself after he gets the space?
And can they make it back to the start-finish line as you got the two Jimmy Johnson schemes up on that top side, the 44 and the 5. They're not really hooked up well enough. Spillman moving up there. I don't know if he was trying to drag them along, then had to quickly get back down in front of the 12 of Jones.
Yeah, it was a big push coming from the 44 and the 5. Spillman thought better of it. And then look at that 12 and 9. They're really trying to do all they can to stay connected. Oh, it's getting bumpy though, Seth. Here we go to the white flag.
Dancing through turns 3 and 4. Can they just make it that couple extra inches to the stripe? No, I don't think they did. They did cross it. There's no caution yet.
And Gavin Jones is taking... No, he got involved as well. Who's the leader here?
I'm not sure who the leader is.
It looks like it might be the 56 of Blake Trawick.
I think you're right. The caution, according to what we saw, did not come out until after the leaders had crossed the start-finish line.
We're racing back, and I think it's
Yes,
the 56.
we are. 56 is the leader, but look who's behind him. You got two trucks lined up behind him. Trying to make out who those are.
27 Alex Fox, who's heavily damaged in the lap car, Mitchell Muma. So Fox, he's not going to have a chance, I think, to really win this one. He's damaged heavy, and it looks like it's going to be the 56.
How about that? Blake Trawick makes it through the mayhem, coming to the white flag, and he will win here tonight at Daytona in the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge 200. What a crazy last lap.
Alex Fox second, and how about Jacob McMillan, who had just got his lap back after that caution? He's going to finish third.
And Lucas Cram, he's going to take the points lead going into Talladega. He'll finish fourth. Brandon Hoff looks like he's going to be finishing in the 11th position.
No, 13th. He's going to be back there. Yeah, he's going to be... no, they're going to say 12th. 12th, so... Whew, wow, what a finish.
I was waiting to see... I mean, the wreck happened maybe 100 feet before the start-finish line. I didn't know if maybe the caution would come out just before they hit the start-finish line, but it came out maybe about a second after they had crossed the stripe, which is why race was going to be official when they got back to the start-finish line, and there were very few drivers that got through that wreck unscathed.
Now, mind you, as they were coming to the line there for the white flag, Trawick was ninth, Seth. He was ninth. Wow. You have got to see his in-car cam and show our viewers, because I don't know how he got through this. I'm watching the cockpit, and it is impressive stuff. My goodness.
How many times do you hear at the Superspeedways, right place, right time? You don't always have to be at the front to win these Superspeedway races.
And some ace driving, I will say, about 56 to get through this wreck. I mean, when we see this, you'll see what I'm talking about. Wow. Impressive stuff.
Let's see if we can find out what the initial contact was. Saw the 44. Oh, yeah, I think Gavin Jones might have drifted up a little bit, clipped the 44 in the left rear quarter pail, and then the tracks just completely blockaded up. And at this point in time, too, knowing they've taken the white flag, nobody's going to use the brakes. They're just going to mash the throttle down, close their eyes, and pray.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned Jones and the 44. I can't tell if it was it looks like the 12 was pushing the 88 and just maybe hit him in the wrong spot, and that forced the 12 up, connecting with the 44, and then connected with the 88, and then everybody was all over everywhere. But my goodness, just the scene coming out of the trial.
Here's the onboard you were talking about with Blake Trawick. Just watch the waters part. Oh man, Gavin Jones, if he hadn't had that little bit of overcorrection there, he might have actually been the one to win this race. But that little bit of not being able to save it is what helped Trawick be able to get this win.
Yeah, and I thought Jones was going to be able to pull through right there. I thought initially he had kept it straight, but as you mentioned, just had too much of an overcorrection. He gets thrown back into the wall. I think, man, how about Jacob McMillan, though, again? Got his lap back right there. Got his lap back at the end, and then finds his way to third through all the chaos.
Absolutely amazing. A number of drivers there with some comeback runs, if you will, with where they were running at the time. And as we take another look at the wreck here, and you see a lot of drivers just scattered down to the inside line, and there's the shot that Brandon Hoff took, finishing in the 12th position. I mean, you know, Shane Howell finishing in 7th. Jared Darling was off the pace. He had already used his faster pair. The truck was really mangled up after getting caught up in that late race yellow, and he was able to still bring it home with a top 10 in the 8th position.
Yeah, just, I mean, wild flipping points now. So we mentioned the points lead changing hands. Is Cram's going to be that guy finding a way to finish fourth now, and just chaos at Legacy '08 Daytona. Remember, folks, we mentioned it. This is going to be the season finale as well. So, what a preview we might get there for potentially crowning the champion.
Absolutely is. There you see the full finish results from this race. This is how they all crossed the start-finish line after having to get their cars refired, leaving the scene of the accident just past the start-finish line after taking the white flag and bringing it back to the checkered. Officially 13 cars finishing on the lead lap. And, we talk about McMillan working his way from getting back on the lead lap to third and Trewick from ninth to first. The heartbreak would probably have to go to Clint Spillman, was leading the race coming to the white flag and finished his last car in the lead lap in 13th.
Yeah, tough break for sure, but that's super speedway racing, Seth. That's going to happen from time to time.
Absolutely. Well, let's see if we can get some interviews with some of our top three finishers after that one. And let's kick things off with maybe one of the comeback of the race drivers, and that's Jacob McMillan. Hey, Jacob, it's Tyler and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I do. Hello.
Man, it's why you always have to stick around to the end of these super speedway races, because we saw you run into trouble early on in this thing. You get that lucky dog in the late stages of this race, make your way through the chaos, and finish in third. Quite an adventurous day there for your 21 machine.
Definitely was. I think that was the most terrifying thing I think I've ever done behind the wheel, was get through that last wreck there. I somehow got caught through the grass, avoiding all those trucks that were spinning and stuff, and pushed it home third.
We saw a lot of the wrecks take place in the early stages of this race. Were you kind of surprised by that we didn't see more of the wrecks take place in the second half of the race, that maybe drivers would think about maybe riding around the first half, preserving their stuff?
This race happened more backwards than what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be the complete other way around.
Yeah, and Jacob, coming into tonight, you were kind of one of those guys that was on the outside looking in points-wise. You had kind of a marathon day. You mentioned how it was kind of a backwards race, so to speak. But with this third place now, what does that put your mindset as you get down into these final couple races before we lock in the playoff 12?
My mindset's not changing at all. I'm just going to do the best that I can do.
Fair enough. I mean, Seth, I don't think I could argue with that.
Absolutely not, especially when you come to the wild card type tracks as the super speedways. But Jacob, man, what a comeback run for you here today. You get that race yellow, you bring it home on the podium. Congratulations on a great run. We're now going to let you do some shout outs.
Great, thank you. I'm going to shout out mainly my one causes for the Spina Bifida Awareness Month of October. It's a birth defect affecting your spine, obviously, and it limits movement and growth, and this is the awareness month for that. So I thought this would be the opportunity to do that. So,
well, that's Jacob McMillan. Brings it home podium here tonight at Daytona. His first top 5 of the season as well. Congrats on a great run there, Jacob. And as Tyler alluded to, hopefully he can carry this momentum into the final 2 races of this regular season.
Thank you.
And let's see if we can get the 27 of Alex Fox, who brings it home second place tonight. Hey, Alex, it's Tyler and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, man, we talked top of the broadcast that no driver yet this season has been able to go coast to coast, start on the pole, win this race. Man, you were close, but we saw that you got a little bit of damage from that wreck coming to the white flag. Do you think that if you had been at least a little bit closer to that 56 on that final lap, you had a truck pushing you, do you think you'd have been able to make a move on him coming to the checkered?
I probably not without the help of Mitch. I was damaged way too much. Right at the last millisecond there. Maybe if I had like a couple more inches of room, I probably would have minimized that, and probably still had enough engine to carry me to the checkers. But all in all, great race, and it's about time I've actually got myself keep the truck together and save the fast repair late and be able to seal off a top 2 finish.
Yeah, you talk about that fast repair. We saw 2 early cautions prior to lap 10, and a lot of drivers having to use that fast repair even as early as then, having to kind of drive on eggshells, if you will, trying to preserve their stuff for the latter portions of this race. How difficult was it with having those early cautions of trying to figure out where the safest place on the racetrack was to make sure you didn't tear up your stuff before you got to the second half?
Well, as you saw early in the race, we had a little bit of netcode contact, so that set me up high, and that gave me a little bit of damage. And then I wasn't sure of how much damage I was. So when I got into the pits, I only had about 10 seconds of damage. So I saved my fast repair, and I've just been trying to, since I was in the back, I've been trying to keep away and protect myself for the race, and I found myself winding up up front near the end of the stage, and I just try to keep up front and have it all behind me.
Now, Alex, this was your second pole. We mentioned that. But do you feel like what's worked out for you so far in your starts is kind of being up front and kind of controlling your own destiny? Maybe, like I said, having everything behind you? Or is there certain parts of the race where you're definitely more comfortable just kind of hanging back and trying to pick your spot?
It depends. It depends on how things play out early in the race. If I'm going to start out on pole, or at least in like the top 2 rows, top 3, I'm going to try to stay up there and try to control my own race and help keep the guys around me where they are, and try to have everything stay behind me. So because I don't want them to happen in front of me and me have to deal with anything that happens. Yeah, that's about it.
Alex, I mean, some great stats for you here, and 4 starts. This is now your first top 5, your second pole of the season as well. Hopefully you can continue to carry this momentum as we get into those final 2 races of the regular season heading towards the playoffs. But we're now going to turn the mic over to you, let you do some shout-outs.
I'd like to give a shout out to my mom, she's moved down to Kentucky. She moved down there a few weeks ago, and she's living pretty much on her own down there. And she might be watching. I shared the broadcast on my Facebook, and she often watches us, and she'll send me texts during the race when something happens. So she's watching. Hello, Mom.
Well, that's Alex Fox. He brings it home second place here tonight after a chaotic last lap at Daytona. Congrats on a great run there, Alex, and good luck here in the home stretch for the regular season.
All right. Thank you.
And last but not least, let's get the guy that crossed the line with the white flag 9th, but brought it home with the victory. Hey, Blake, it's Tyler and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I got you loud and clear.
Man, I mean, we saw a chaotic start to this race. We saw a chaotic middle portion of this race. We saw the round of green flag pit stops, but it came down to being in the right place at the right time. You were 9th when that caution came out, taking the white flag. Next thing you know, you're coming around and taking the checkered flag. I mean, how much driving went into getting through that wreck, and how much of it was just luck?
I want to give it mostly to luck. Because, right place, right time, because you know how Daytona is. Any super speedway, it's mostly luck and just paying attention. But I'm gonna start with a pun. If anybody's partying till the cow comes home, the cow came home. I'm sorry. I don't even know what to say. I took a risk using my fast repair in the green white checker and figured we were out of contention. But Lady Luck showed up. Home track win. I'm speechless. That was an exciting race.
Man, I think that cow jumped over the moon, but we saw in the early stages of this race, we already knew that with you guys coming to the older version of Daytona, the 2008 version, it was going to be very bumpy for you guys in the corners. Saw a lot of drivers, especially on that inside line, having trouble with the truck pushing up. We saw, I think, a couple of times you actually got down on that paint line as well. How difficult was it to line up the bumpers to keep a draft going with the bumps that you had to endure?
Very, very difficult. And for some reason with these forward front bumpers, they don't like to line up. So you have to be precise on it and trust that driver in front of you to hold on to it.
Yeah, it's and Blake, this is your 3rd start of the season. getting the win, and you mentioned the trust factor. So with you not having maybe as many races as some of the other guys in the field, not having that camaraderie built up, did you feel like maybe that was kind of a thing you had to fight through tonight, kind of getting guys to trust you a bit, or are you just kind of running your race, not worried about that?
A little bit of both. A couple of guys I've seen official before that I raced with before. Most are just kind of showing what I could do in the middle of the race and watching what they could do to hopefully build some sort of trust. So if I got hooked up with the right people, we could go and just, hope for the best. And in this case, the best did come.
Hey, one final question for you here, Blake. We talked about the fact that this is actually going to be the venue where the championship is decided in 6 weeks' time. And, a driver that goes to victory lane here more than likely going to be the one everybody looks at to possibly maybe double down at the end of this season. Are you heading into this second race that they're going to be having here at the Daytona 08 with a little bit more confidence, or do you still head in not really sure what this track's going to offer?
I think I'm going to enter it not knowing, because you never know these super speedways. It doesn't matter how much confidence you go in, never know what's going to happen to you. You got to go in and just take the race for what it is each time.
Well, Blake, we say at the super speedway races, right place, right time. That's exactly where you were there on that final lap. Congratulations on a great victory here today. Well-deserved getting through that wreck, coming to the white flag. We're now going to turn the mic over to you, let you do some shout-outs.
Well, first and foremost, the one who painted my car, Robert over there at Splash and Go. Got to give a shout out to them. All my friends that are actually watching the stream right now. And for Daniel, since he wanted me to say this, waffle cone on the stream. So there you go, Daniel.
That's Blake Trawick. He gets his first win of the season here tonight and a wild one at Daytona. Congrats on the victory, Blake. Go and enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And that's going to conclude our coverage here tonight from Daytona. And Tyler, you've been covering these races all season long. This is my first time doing this, but man alive, there's no doubt about it. These guys definitely know what they're doing, but it's one of those races where you have to be watching every single lap because, as we saw, so many different ways the super speedways are able to shake up the points. They're able to shake up who the front runners are. As we saw, a driver that was a lap down for most of this race brings it home in the third position. It's one of those kind of never give up type of mentalities, whether you're a driver or whether you're a spectator, because you never know who your podium's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, especially these last 2 weeks, Sam. Sam, there I go again. Boy, sorry, Seth.
Answer to anything.
Right. Anyways, but no, I would say I went back and watched the Michigan race a bit, not being able to be there last week, but these 2 weeks have just been kind of wild card tracks. Guys aren't as familiar with what to do maybe out of Michigan or an 08 Daytona. I think we saw that in both races where there's just maybe a little bit of some mental mistakes here and there that you wouldn't typically see. And it definitely created for some big time drama in the points at the end of the race. Not that these guys didn't put on great shows at the other tracks, at Daytona, Talladega, but my goodness, it's been crazy last couple of weeks now. It sets up for a very interesting last couple of weeks as you go into Talladega and Daytona again, the night race there to kind of set your playoff field and see what happens. But yeah, how about just today? I think definitely was the story of underdogs. You mentioned, pretty much all top three. Maybe you could say Fox wasn't necessarily an underdog, but definitely McMillan and Trawick out of nowhere, it seemed like, be able to get these podiums. Fantastic stuff as usual. And I always love hearing about the family support there as well. Coming in with some of these drivers, it's always cool to see.
Absolutely. We're, as you said, closing down the end of this regular season. We've got Talladega and Daytona coming up for the final two races of this regular season. The top 12 drivers in the points are the ones that make it into the playoffs. And coming into this race, there was probably about 20 drivers that were separated by maybe 20 to 30 points. A lot of opportunity for spots to be gained and lost. So it's going to make those final two races, I think, a lot more interesting. And maybe, as you said, with the aggressiveness that we saw at Michigan, the aggressiveness we saw here tonight could be attributed to the fact these drivers are now realizing they've got to start making their moves now to set themselves up to be in one of those playoff positions when the checkered flag flies in 2 weeks' time at Daytona. Yeah,
and I can't wait to see what the next couple weeks brings, and just seeing that playoff picture kind of shape up a bit more, the points get tighter. I really think you're going to see some mind games going on the next 2 weeks. You may have guys choose not to work with somebody because they go, hey, this guy's ahead of me in points. I need to get in front of him. It's definitely going to be a lot more aware, I think, in that sense, for all these drivers. Kind of know what's up and know what they need to do to get themselves in that top 12.
Absolutely. Well, Blake Trawick is your winner here tonight in the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge 200 at Daytona International Speedway, and will carry this momentum into Talladega next Wednesday night. Tyler, appreciate you joining me here tonight. It's been a great one and a lot of fun to be able to call this series.
As always, Seth, as always.
Thanks to everybody that tuned in this evening. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday night when these drivers head to Talladega Superspeedway. Green flag will be flying at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then for Tyler Riggs, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in here this evening as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.